Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 141. I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it's great to be with you again. My guest this week is none other than my good friend, Cait McMahon, founder of New Echo Media and New Sounds Online. Cait is kind of a versatile person in the music industry. She writes about music, she promotes music, she helps develop talent, she puts on shows, she prints scenes. She does a little bit of everything that you could hope to do in this industry, and she does it really well. Best of all is that she calls North Carolina home. And when you think of the music industry, you tend to think of coastal cities, but North Carolina does not have one of those cities. It doesn't have even a huge scene that we recognize. But to hear Cait talk about it, you would think that it was no different than Boston or New York or Los Angeles in terms of the kind of talent there, the kind of passion for music that lies there, and the type of people that want to see their scene, their community flourish. On this episode, Cait tells me a lot about her journey in music. We start at the very beginning, how she got into music, her first shows. I believe it involves Aaron Carter and an airport. And then we get into writing about music and how you go from, just wanting to promote the bands that you love to getting really into the business of music. These days, she runs New Echo Media PR, a flourishing publicity firm, and she just landed her first international client. She tells us how that came together, as well as the things that she hopes to do in the future. But really, this podcast is about sticking to your dreams. You see, Cait's been doing this for about a decade at this point, and though she's only in her mid-20s, that is still a lot of work and time. People like to say that kids can't do anything, but as we were all kids ourselves, we know that that's not necessarily true, especially in the digital age. If you have access to the internet and focused passion about something, you can learn to do just about anything, and that is what Cait has done here in the music business. She's built her own company on more than one occasion. She started a local magazine, she's hosted shows, she's put on events, she's helped artists reach their wildest dreams, and she's just getting started. So when you listen to this episode, I want you to pay attention to the story she's being told, but also the lessons that she wants you to take away from it. Cait does a lot of public speaking. She's appeared at conferences around the country, and you can tell that because every time she finishes answering a question, she tells you what you can learn from it and how you can apply the same lesson in your own life. And that's a little bit of a dig because I call it conference talk, and she's really good at doing that. But it's good and it's worth your time. Before we get there, I do want to bring up a few quick things. First and foremost, this episode of Inside Music and all episodes of Inside Music are brought to you by Holix, the music industry's leading digital promotional distribution company. Now, what that means is that Holix works with record labels, publicists, managers, and independent artists from all over the world to discreetly share new and unreleased music without fear of piracy. To learn how they do this and gain access to a free 30-day trial, visit Holix.com. That's HAULIX.com. I also want to invite you to follow us on Twitter. I know that we used to have one for the podcast, but we're actually going to be ending that feed and just moving everything into the Holix feed. So just follow Holix. Again, that's HAULIX. And you can find me on Twitter as well. It's James D. Shotwell. That's D as in dog or Doug or dynamite or any of those words that start with D. Finally, support what Cait's up to. It's New Echo Media, and she spells new N-U, like unicycle, unique, anything, any U words, you. Follow Cait on there, find her stuff online, and get behind the band. She just worked with this group called Lowborn that I cannot get enough of, and the talent that she has on the horizon, which I don't think I'm allowed to mention just yet, are also really good and really exciting. They're doing crazy things, and Cait is kind of the puppet master behind it, making it all happen. So sit back, relax, and learn about one person's wild ride in the music industry.
I've got a client campaign going on right now for a band called Young Judas. They are a pop rock band out of Calgary, Canada. They're actually my first international public relations client, so it's pretty exciting. So that was another first of 2018. So 2019 has been pretty good to me as well. We've gotten a couple good placements there. I'm also recording my own podcast later tonight, Drunk and Local. I'm doing the second official episode with a previous client, Lowborn, from Greensboro. They're an emo pop band, emo pop rock, I guess is a good genre. They're incredible. I love them. So those are some great guys. Going to be drinking some good beer. maybe one day I can get you back on that podcast and we can do a real episode instead of just like completely fucking the whole thing up the whole time.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't done any drinking or anything of the sort since October 2nd, so we'll find something. Maybe we can do like a coffee and local version of the podcast.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Sober James. I like
Yeah, it's fun. He's a cool guy. Getting to know him.
it.
He's all right.
I've actually been sober for myself as well, but I forgot about my own podcast, which is very on brand for me, I think, which is called Drunk and Local, obviously, which involves me drinking. So I'm going to have to break that for tonight, and then I'll go back to my soberness tomorrow.
The hardest part, honestly, for me wasn't not doing anything. It was the clarity that and the dreams that come. Because like I always heard that like if you smoke or anything for a long time, not cigarettes for people listening at home, um, you have like this like you can't get into the deep enough level of sleep where you have dreams and nightmares and stuff. So like as that leaves your body and you get like fully that full clarity, like instead of just like starting to dream again, it's almost like your mind like unleashes all the backed up dreams it hasn't had. So for a little while, things got real weird at night. Like super intense
God.
dreams where you're aware you're dreaming and you can't wake up and it's just like nightmare fuel.
Ooh, yeah. I kind of I would probably pay a lot of money or sacrifice a couple limbs um, to not have dreams. I think a lot of my stress and anxiety kind of manifests when I'm sleeping more than any other time in my life. So I often have dreams that I have like a dream journal. So I write a lot of them down if they're like specifically horrible, but most of them are pretty just like super intense. And it's about like dumb shit too. Like it's not anything like actually super serious, but it just stresses me out, in my dreams. I wake up like, oh my God. So I feel that.
Yeah, I had one. The one that I always remember is that I had one where I caused a horrible car accident with like multiple fatalities and damage, property damage. And I remember in the dream getting out of the car and like where I was like some unbelievable landscape. But I was like, this can't be real because there's like a loop de loop on the highway or something. It didn't make any sense. But I couldn't wake up, so I was just like, maybe this is reality. Was I dreaming the rest of the time? Like it got real weird. But those seem to have passed, and now I just kind of have like a ton of dreams every night, and it's so weird because for the longest time I would just tell people I'd never dream, and now I dream constantly, and I kind of hate it. So,
Well, welcome to Dreamland. It's a terrible place.
yeah, it sounds awful. Everyone always made it sound so fun, and I was always so jealous, and now I'm not jealous anymore.
I've like dreamt a couple, like there's been a couple times, I don't think I'm like a psychic by any means or anything like that, but there's been a couple times where I have something and then something like, or like I dream something and then something related kind of happens in my life. So that's kind of cool for like the universe to be like, hey, maybe you're on the right path or something. So
Given my recent dreams, I hope that never happens to me. But I can understand how that would be cool in like the right situation. Just not want anything that's happening in my life. But let's talk about. I want to take people back to. I kind of want to start before you get into PR because the big thing on social media right now is this, 2009 2019 challenge or this 10-year change challenge, and you had like amazing photos. So I want to go back like one step further than working in music, and like let's start with like tell me how you first, I guess, got into that point. Everyone has this point when they're growing up where they're like, I think I want to work in music. So when did that happen to you?
oh God. So, oh my God, that 10-year photo is just, the angst is leaking from my eyeballs in that picture. Like, wow. That was 20, oh God, that was 2009, I think. Is when I posted that photo. But God, working in music. I mean, so I grew up in the Keys, the Florida Keys, which, if anybody, I mean, a lot of people have visited there, but people living there know that there's really no sort of music scene, like literally nothing. As I told you, like, and a couple, others on my own podcast, Aaron Carter at the Marathon Airport was my first concert, which kind of gives you a clue into the lack of just music in general in the Keys. Aaron Carter just happened to live in Marathon, so the airport was, the most relevant venue for whatever reason. But So growing up there, I was raised on music, like my dad was always playing guitar. He'd play songs for me. I grew up on a lot of classic rock. Classic rock is my first love. So Queen, the Beatles, the Eagles, stuff like that. Those were like some of my top ones, Meatloaf, things like that. My first favorite song ever was Fat Bottom Girls, which is pretty funny. But so working, I don't know, working in music was never really like a dream for me. It literally just happened. Like, because in the Keys, like I said, there was really nothing going on. So when I was that was like the one good thing I kind of got out of moving when I was 16, because when you're 16 and you move, you leave, everything. If you've lived in one place your whole life and you leave it, it's kind of depressing. I went through like a lot of changes and a lot of things. I was super shy before I moved. And then after I moved, obviously I was kind of forced out of my shell and kind of became the person that I am now. So thankful for all of that. But when I came here, I was like, wow, well, one plus is there's a music scene here, in Charlotte, it's not like a crazy music scene, but it's definitely a huge step up from the Keys. A lot of major tours come through Charlotte, and we have a lot of really great local music going on here. So that was a really cool thing. So I guess my first move into music was probably when I started blogging. My senior year, I went through like a time where, my dumb high school boyfriend broke up with me, blah, 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 all this stuff. So I needed something to kind of take my mind off it. And music has always, like I said, I grew up around it. So it's always been like my main thing. So I started kind of just writing about some bands that I thought deserved coverage, like smaller bands. And then I kind of discovered, hey, like I can start kind of reaching out to, their agents and management and stuff like that, and kind of maybe talk to them about getting tickets to these shows in order to review the shows and talk about the stuff that I was doing, and, not necessarily get paid for it, but it, in a way be kind of rewarded for it. So I don't really remember how I even kind of discovered that option. Like there wasn't, I wasn't huge on social media at that time. We had Facebook, but that was pretty much it. Like I wasn't big on Twitter, Instagram, or anything, I don't think Instagram was a thing. And I'm old, but it's fine. So when I started doing that, my first show ever actually that I reviewed was this band called Banner Pilot. And I don't even remember how I came across them. They were just coming through one of these venues that was here that's actually torn down now, which is a testament to the music scene here, which I can talk about more later if you want. But this venue called Tremont Music Hall is torn down now, but Banner Pilot came through there. So that was the first person I reached out to, like, hey, I'll write about this show if you give me a ticket, blah, blah, blah. So I did. It was a lot of fun. I ended up doing that for quite a few shows at Tremont Music Hall under the name then that was shamefully called Rad Promotions. It makes me cringe because I just picture my logo, which was, so I think it was like the Mac, like default background, probably like 5 updates ago. It was like that horrific space background, like the purple pink one. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so yeah, it was like a really just like a really cheesy space background. Anyway, so I used that, of all things. I used that to make like the word rad. So I had rad and like a space background, and then overlaid on another space background that said Rad Promotions, like all in the back. It was literally the worst, the most 2011 logo you've ever seen probably, but pretty terrible. So I did that. And I also vividly remember reviewing, this is like my one claim to fame, I think. I reviewed G-Eazy. I saw G-Eazy in 2 rows of people at Tremont Music Hall in, God, what year was it? It was right before his first album came out. So yeah, that was crazy. I vividly remember writing in my review as well, saying, like, this dude's gonna blow up. He's so cool. He's like a greaser turned rapper. He's amazing. I'm in love with him. Blah blah blah. Marry me. So here I am. I'm a music single predictor. He popped off, and I like to think it's because of me, single-handedly.
We all do.
So that's kind of where my start began. And then after all of that, it just kind of snowballed, because when I started writing about music and then kind of, like I said, getting tickets for it, I was like, wait, this might be my thing, because I've always kind of been a writer, like just really into that kind of stuff, through high school and all that good stuff. So then I started doing in 2011, street teams were a huge thing, because social media was just kind of starting to, I think, really take off at that point. So I think my first ever street team actually was with Victory Records, and they would just, I think actually, yeah, yep, Victory Records, that was my first one. So back then they would just send you a shitload, like I mean like probably like a 20-pound box of just demo CDs, and I would get this like every couple months, just like a shitload of demo CDs, a shitload of flyers for whoever was on their roster, and I was just in charge of passing them out and taking pictures as proof and submitting it, and that was that. I constantly I remember having a demo with like a couple Day to Remember songs on it, and just feeling like the coolest person when I had, these demo CDs in my purse that I was just able to like give to my friends. They're like, oh my God, you're so cool, you like do music stuff. And in reality, I was just, doing absolutely nothing basically. But I did that. And then I started on a Fueled by Ramen street team. And it's, the same exact thing basically, but they were super sticker focused. So I was doing stickers for them. And a lot of it involved, Warped Tour and all of that. And then I started, I also street teamed for Photo Finish Records, which also turned out to be my first merch gig ever. I ran 303's booth at this thing called Bamboozle Roadshow, which I want to say was like a one-time thing maybe, but it came to Charlotte, and it was just a ton of bands. It was great. It was All Time Low, Good Charlotte, Forever the Sickest Kids, 303. Oh wait, no, I don't think 303 was there. I think the label was just there. And then I also remember Jack Vanek, like her brand being there. She was there as well. And that day, Photo Finish, Jack Vanek, and Good Charlotte, we all had our merch on the same two trucks. And I remember our two trucks were late as shit to the show. So we all that was like my first experience of, shooting the shit with people that I literally looked up to. Sitting down, talking shit with some people because our buses were late were pretty cool. So yeah, that was my first merch experience. So yeah, I feel like if you really want something, whether it's the music industry or any other thing, once you kind of get into it and you're really passionate about it, it all really just takes off, because I'm the type of person where if I love something the way that I love music, I want to know everything about it, which can also be my downfall sometimes. Working in PR, my tasks are very specific, and I know what PR involves and what PR doesn't, but regardless, I want to do all of it. That's kind of my downfall. I want to, learn about managing. I want to learn about booking. I want to learn about promoting and really everything there is to know about music. And that's kind of what put me in the position to create something that was my own, which is being able to learn every aspect of the music industry and kind of place myself in, I'm not an expert by any means, but in a way that people can kind of see me as, like a leader and just like a thought leader, really, I think is a good phrase for it. And I think a lot of people that are in the music industry right now know that it's really important, especially in this day and age, to constantly be able to set yourself apart and be able to say, well, okay, yeah, well, I'm a publicist, but I also do this, and this, and I've been a music journalist for this long, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that's kind of where I started. That was a really long answer.
That's okay. I did the Victory CD thing as well. In fact, I remember the first one that anyone ever handed me, like before I got into doing it myself, was I remember being outside some kind of Christian concert at some church, and some kid handed me a CD sampler that had Atreyu's Right Side of the Bed and whatever the other big single is off that record on one side, and then the other side, I think the other, because it was always like 4 songs or like 2 from one artist and then 3 from like 3 different artists, and it was like Dead to Fall and like 2 of the other heavy Victory bands. But I remember getting that CD, and that's how I discovered Atreyu, and then I eventually started doing it, and I also got like the 5 or 6 boxes with like 50 CD samplers in each. And I remember that they would just send those to you. Like if you were like, I need another box, they wouldn't ask questions. They would just ship you a box of CDs.
Yeah, like I remember you really needed, like I don't think I submitted a lot of proof that I gave them out.
No, not at all. And the other day I was reading an article on the music industry's impact on the environment, and it said that CDs that are just thrown away in landfills are estimated to take up to 1 million years to fully decompose. And I was like, I'm responsible for so many CDs that are in the garbage.
Yeah, me and Victory are solely responsible for all of that.
Yeah, Victory has definitely done that. That's fine. It's fine. That used to be the thing. It's so weird to think that even 10 years ago, but I mean, 15 years ago was even more intense. Like, Victory did that for a long time with every album. They would do like quarterly samplers, end of year samplers, new artist samplers, heavy samplers. And I remember like they would just ship you so much stuff all the time. And I don't, and you know, none of it is around anymore. Like if even if you gave it to people who actually liked it, like by this point, it's either like in a box at their parents' house or it's in a landfill somewhere. It's pretty much it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm really sad I haven't saved at least one of them just so I could see like what the cover was and like what singles are being promoted.
I can still remember some of them, but I definitely have that thought. I bet I have it at my parents' house. I loved Victory so much back then that I bought a separate CD case and I really tried to collect every single Victory release because that was about the time I picked up on how like on the spine it always said like VR 135, 136, whatever for the release number. And so at one point I was like, I want to have all of them. So I have a CD case at home that has like I don't know. I don't have like the first 10 because that's like electric. That like they didn't have those anymore. But I remember telling them that I wanted to do that, and them sending me physical copies of everything I didn't have. So I probably have like 50 through like 200 or something like that in a CD case somewhere.
Yeah, it's like the on cards of the music industry.
Yeah, and now they just sit in a closet at my parents' house, and sometimes they're like, "Will you take these with you?" And I'm like, "I don't have anywhere to put them." So one day
Right?
I'll go through them, and it'll just be like relics of things I used to own. It's cool. It's fine.
That's my whole closet right now. We have no storage in my apartment, so my closet is just it's like playing Tetris anytime I want to try to find something. Like I have absolutely no idea where anything is, but it's all precisely organized. Like if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Like, when I moved into my new apartment, I definitely had to. I liquidated so much stuff. I just ended up taking a lot of it to a family shelter in the area. Like, I went probably 4 times over 2 weeks to this family shelter, and every time I had like boxes of stuff or clothes or dishes or whatever it happened to be, and they would just be like, "You're back again? Like, where are you getting all this stuff?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just had it." Um, and now
Disappearing.
yeah, now I have like a very small amount of stuff and I know where everything is, but I still have it is like Tetris. If it's not in the right order, it's not going to work. Like it has to be stored properly.
Right. Exactly. Literally, I remember getting out my Halloween decorations, being like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna fuck my whole closet. It's gonna take me a month to put all this shit back."
Absolutely. And now even now I have to do laundry today still, and I've been dreading it because I haven't done it in a while, and the idea of having to piece my closet back together with all the clothes clean give me anxiety. That's old person anxiety where you're like, ugh, cleaning requires organization. It's too much work. I always feel like, especially when I talk to people who got into this mostly through writing, that there comes a point kind of early on, like what was like your first success story that you remember? Like the first time, I don't know if it was a label or the artist or someone like shared what you wrote or commented on what you wrote. Like what was the first big success that you remember where you were like, oh, I might actually be able to do this?
The thing that kind of solidified it for me, I don't remember the band specifically, but I think the first time like a local band, because I was really big into doing like my whole focus for the first website was I'm not going to cover anybody that people already know about, that don't not necessarily they don't need the coverage, but like other people need it more basically. So I was really mainly focusing on just tiny bands. I think honestly the first show I reviewed, Banner Pilot, I think they actually shared like the post or something that I had created. I think that was pretty big for me. And just having those small bands, just, that I was giving coverage to out of nowhere and them just kind of reciprocating, being like, hey, like, thank you so much, or like sharing. That was huge for me, for to be able to feel like I was making a difference for, even if I gained, one fan for them, that was big for me because I knew the importance of that even before really understanding the music industry at all. I knew that these bands were working so incredibly hard to get their music out, to get their, passion projects heard. And for me to play a tiny role in that was just everything to me, and it still is. That's that's what I pride myself with in publicity. It's like, yes, I'm getting your stuff out to the media, but in reality, like, the whole purpose of all of this is because I want people to hear your passions that you're putting out through this music, and it deserves it. So I only work with people that I'm really, really faithful in and really passionate about as well, and people that I can put on my back and carry with me for my whole career, whether or not they're active on my roster. But that's kind of how that started, was being like having those bands, recognize what I was doing for them, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of a weird answer, I feel like, but I'm really tempted to hold on. I really want to see if I can go back into my old webpage and like find this Banner Pilot review. It's like really tempting. It's somewhere on Tumblr, so God knows like what's what it's like right now. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me. And then once I got to college, and so I went from rap promotions, and then I moved into, I think it was my freshman year in college. I realized two girls that I went to high school with were kind of interested in the same thing that I was. Like, they were both doing the music blog thing as well. They were two of my really good friends. We just kind of never talked about it. And then one day we were like, wait, we're all doing the same thing. Like, why don't we all just do it together, and it'll be much more effective. So we rebranded as the Encore Media. And that was me and two other girls. One was in Asheville and one was in California. We all had went to high school together though, but we had all just like went separate paths for college. But we all were doing the music thing in those different areas. So we kind of put it together, and we got this idea of coast to coast coverage. So Marissa over there being in California, Lauren being in Asheville in the mountains of North Carolina, and then me being in like more of a central area of North Carolina, we're able to kind of tackle the music industry, not just the small bands that I have been so, into, but the bigger bands as well, and making more connections. And it was just a huge learning process. So I think once I got those two girls on board, with me, and we all became this team, and we all had the same vision, that's when it really became real, like once, because everybody knows running something like that by yourself that's actually like sustainable, like that sustains itself and has a good following, and does daily reviews and posts, and it's so much work, and 90% of the time we're not making shit. I'm still not really making anything off the website that I run now 10 years later, so that says a lot, I think. And if you do want to make money off it, it takes like some serious business dedication, which is amazing for the people that do it and find the time. But yeah, I think once I had the two other people on my team, that was huge to me. I think having a team is really, really important. The team that I have over on the website that I run now, New Sound, they're amazing. We have great contributors that, they are literally the backbone of everything that we do. So that's probably one of the biggest things for me.
Absolutely, and you made a good point. It's really hard to make money at this at all, period. And PR, which you do now, definitely isn't any different, I guess, for the first longest time. I always feel like there's like a big jumping point in PR where I have friends that do it like you that'll tell me at first it's like barely getting by. And then one day I talk to them and they're like, we made $25,000 last month, but we have to make that every month or we can't make payroll. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. How did we jump? Like, what happened in between those two numbers? Like, what changed? And how is that not enough money anymore? The financials of making it work are always so confusing. But speaking specifically to PR, I want to get there. But first, you mentioned this kind of in your explanation about writing and getting excited about it and what you're passionate about in it. And that's that you always still maintain a real passion for your local community and like kind of working with it and kind of being like an incubator for local talent and trying to build the community around local music. So what do you really attribute that to? Is it that you grew up in a place that didn't have that local scene, so when you found one you kind of took to it in a motherly fashion, or is it something else? Like, what is it that kind of drives you to be so passionate about your immediate scene, region, whatever you want to say?
Yeah. So definitely the part of not having one definitely did a huge thing for it, because once I got to Charlotte and I was 16 and I kind of came out of my shell, I, was kind of the friends that I made in high school here in Charlotte were into those type of things, obviously, because I was an emo kid, so I attracted other emos. The emos run in packs. So the people that I ended up being friends with were into this music scene, and they just like really threw me into it, and it was incredible. Some of my fondest memories. Okay, so I have like a really soft spot for house shows. Like I don't know what it is. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have a soft spot for house shows, but when I first moved to North Carolina, there were these like rundown shit houses in this. I can't even remember the neighborhood. I really don't even know what it was, because at the time I don't even think I was driving. So I have no idea how to even get there anymore. But there were like 4 or 5 houses on the same block, owned by a bunch of grungy punk kids, and they were called the Rad Houses, which is funny and kind of full circle because my first website name was Rad Promotion. So, and then also fun fact, I was like a college radio DJ my freshman year in college, and my name was DJ Rad. So, but anyway, so these houses were called the Rad Houses, and it was Rad 1, Rad 2, Rad 3, Rad 4. And at these houses, I mean, they were barely houses. They were just shells of, houses. They were just walls, basically, at this point. I think people lived there. I honestly can't remember. But it was literally just a place, like just venues kind of, that were just house shows all the time with local punk bands or punk bands coming through the area, and just metally, crusty, grungy, the best, just honestly the best things ever. And me and all my friends would go. I met so many people that are heavily involved in the music scene even now. Like one of, oh God, I'm trying to, one of the local bands here, they're called Unruly Boys, or they were anyway. I'm not sure if they're still active right now, but one of the guys there, I remember seeing him at some of these shows at the Rad Houses. A lot of people I run into even now, like, I feel like I know you from somewhere, and it's from the Rad Houses. And I was probably 100% too young to even be there, but holy shit, they were amazing. And that kind of gave me my first experience of a real scene, and people coming together and creating these spaces and kind of being like this family, making sure everybody was like, taken care of, and everyone had a good time, and just got to know people, without social media, without being on our phones. Like, thank God, I started in the music industry before staring at your phone 24/7 was a thing. I don't think I had an iPhone then, but I don't think anybody really. Well, I think that was at the beginning of the iPhone craze, right around then. But that was nice. You got to know people when you were at shows, and feel like you were a part of something. So that's when it started for me. And then getting into college, doing the college radio thing, I definitely did a lot of that. And then kind of I started like doing the photography thing and photographing local bands, and I don't know. I mean, honestly, it was like so I started really local, and then I went really national, and then I came back local here recently. I tried to go really national for a while because I was like, oh, well, that's where the news is that everybody knows. And then I realized that's kind of so oversaturated, like national news for music, that it's just kind of pointless sometimes, and that the real coverage and the real boots on the ground people are covering local stuff. And that was more important. So I kind of came back to that recently. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of been a really up and down roller coaster ride for me, but I'm really happy that it kind of happened the way that it did.
Absolutely. And now let's just ease that on into getting into PR. So when do you have, I guess, how do you start, but more importantly, like, what is the change where you go, you're writing about music, you're dealing with publicists all the time, you have to have some grasp on how hard and how defeating that can be. What makes you be like, I want to do that thing?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because people always ask me I don't know, it's really interesting, actually. It gives me a really good upper hand, being the fact that I was a journalist first, because like you just said, you're constantly dealing with publicists. So you know what's frustrating, what's annoying, what looks shitty, what looks great, what makes people want to cover your artist, you know, like the kind of pitching that gets the most attraction, things that make me block a publicist. So those were all in my mind before I even knew that it was kind of relevant. But so I graduated with a degree or a bachelor's in communications and international public relations. So when I did that, I graduated in 2016. It took me 5 years because the first year I spent not knowing what the hell I wanted to do. I actually started college with a pre-nursing degree. Haha. First week in that, I was like, yeah, it's going to be a no from me. So I was probably undecided for like a year and a half. And then ended up taking a class that like inspired me to do communications. But so I had my degree in PR, I graduated, and I was like, all right, well, I went to college in the first place because society was kind of pushing me that way. And I was like, all right, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do now that I graduated high school. Went to college, graduated college. And then I did the society push thing again and was like, all right, I guess I get a full-time job, like in my degree, that's what I'm supposed to do. So like, you know, a lot of millennials, I did the full-time job thing, fucking hated it. Like the office, full-time office, no, I hate it. And it's not so much about the full-time work. Like obviously I do full-time work now, and it's not about the office thing. I have, you know, an office right now. It's not about that. It's about this American culture that kind of feeds on working 24/7 and fuck your mental health and fuck your passions and your desires and the rest of your life. Give us everything you've got. Here's some pay that will get you by barely. That's what I did for like 3 years. I did, you know, agency work in PR. I did corporate, and then I went back to agency, and I tried different, you know, types of PR work, and none of it was doing it for me. And finally, I was like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board. You know, like what is making me happy here? The whole time I had music in the back of my mind. You know, I was still doing journalism, but I think it was, let's see, yeah, it was about a year and a half into me graduating, and so about when I was in the middle of figuring out that I couldn't handle corporate America really, or just like working for another company that didn't care about your well-being. It was kind of like a light bulb for me. I was like, you know what, like I love music, and I kept having a lot of experiences of life is too short to just pay bills and die. And I think a lot of millennials are realizing that, and that's why a lot of people, you know, baby boomers kind of blame us for certain industries dying and stuff like that, because we just realize it's not important. You know, a lot of people that are older just pride themselves on being able to pay their bills on time, which is completely fine. And that sounds like a great thing. I don't know what that's like, but I think a lot of us are kind of feeling the effects of having plenty of money, but not plenty of happiness. So that's kind of where I started. I approached a band that I knew he was actually my friend in high school, Dalton, of this tech death metal band called Kairos here in Charlotte. I approached them. I was like, hey, you know, like I had interviewed them before and kind of, you know, been around their music and was like, you guys are really good, like blah, blah, blah. I wanted to start kind of exploring PR. I honestly, honest to God, had no fucking clue what I was doing. Not a clue. I am a strong proponent of fake it till you make it, and that's exactly what I did. So I called Kairos and like, hey, you know, like I really want to start exploring PR. I don't really know what I'm doing. So, you know, you guys are kind of starting out as well. Do you want to partner together? You know, I'll rep you, be your publicist, you know, quote unquote, for free. And we'll just kind of see what happens. And they were amazing. They were like, yeah, let's do it. You know, that's amazing. So I did. I took them on board. So they were like my guinea pig. I wouldn't call them my first client because they weren't paying me and I wasn't doing anything to deserve being paid. So they were my first guinea pig. So with Kairos, I learned everything that I kind of needed. I mean, I'm still learning every day, but I learned the basis of what a press campaign was like. I learned a lot about, you know, that first year, a lot about what it took for a band to be successful and a public relations campaign to be successful. And then I took on this rock and roll client. That my first client ever, my first paying client was this band called Prowess. They're still active on my roster. They're a rock and roll band out of Charlotte. They take a lot of like classic rock stuff, influences, a lot of classic rock influences, and they have a great fan base. Their fan base is super interactive, and especially on social media. And they have a lot of just dedicated people working with them. When I was able to work with them, I worked with them on their first EP release, Head First. And I mean, I had a great time, and like just learning with these guys. And I think they knew that I was still starting out, and I knew that they were still starting out. But knowing that I think it's very obvious to people who have a passion and a drive for this type of thing. It's very obvious when someone else has that. It's very recognizable, which is what I find in a lot of my clients, and a lot of people that I network with. And I think that, yes, I didn't have a whole lot of experience, but what I did have was coming from a place with absolutely nothing, like music-wise, and being able to create an experience where I had a lot of different skills and just kind of be able to take it by storm, like fake it till you make it. I literally was learning as on the fly every day as I went, just doing a lot of research, following other people, talking to other publicists, saying like, hey, like, what are you doing? Angela Mastrogiacomo of Muddy Paw PR, she was an amazing, asset to me in the first couple years of being, just kind of being a mentor and kind of teaching me what it was like to run a PR firm. And then as I kind of progressed through my other career, when I was doing full-time PR work for like other businesses, not music, I realized that it was sucking the life out of me. It was draining. The last time that I worked full-time for somebody else, I was in an office that didn't even have a window. And, over in that time, it was, oh my God, like it just, for me personally, I wish that I could do that because it's easy. It's easy to go to a job that somebody else lays out for you, that, you have somebody telling you what your goals are, what the company needs, and blah, blah, blah. That's easy. Not saying every job is easy. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's easy to do that. But what's hard is to take your passion and create that into something that you can rely on. But I knew even if I couldn't rely on it, that I couldn't continue to do what I was doing, or I was not going to be in a good place mentally. So that's kind of where I began with that. I ended up losing my mom, which was really hard on me, as would be for anybody. Really, losing a parent, it just takes your whole world, as I say, and as I like to say, it flips it upside down. Really, it takes your whole world and shakes it like a snow globe, the shittiest snow globe in the world, and everything changes. And when that happened, my last job, nothing made sense anymore. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm paying bills, sure, that's fine and dandy. I have money to go, buy alcohol to forget that I work a job that I don't care about. But the rest of it just made no sense to me anymore. So I was done. I checked out. And I decided that I was going to do music, and that was what I was going to do until I couldn't anymore. Until I didn't have anything figured out, really. I just kind of was like, you know what, here goes nothing. I just kind of jumped into it. And I knew that that's what my mom would have wanted for me. And I know that's what she still does want for me. I feel her energy around me constantly pushing me. And she always told me that I would be, I would be something. And I think that was really important for me to have her, in my mind, and to kind of be like, okay, life's too short for this. And something I always wanted to do was tour. And I ended up touring that year following her death, and it was like a crazy experience, maybe for another podcast. But yeah, so I don't know, I think everything kind of happens for a reason. But I think the importance and the points that you could take out of that story would just be to, I don't know, like, if you want something, just fucking do it. Like, there's really nothing holding you back. Your life is yours, and it's in your hands, and it's in your heart, and whatever you feel that you were put on this earth to do, then just go fucking do it. Like, whether or not you're getting paid for it, whether or not you have nice things and a nice car, and if you have a passion in you, you need to follow it, because that's where you're going to find happiness, and that's where you're going to find drive and things that matter to you, and that's where you're going to find a worthy life.
I think that's solid advice, and you have a good way of answering my questions without leaving me much room to follow up. That's just the industry side of you. Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned at the top of this that you got your first international artist at the end of 2018, and that was kind of like a bucket list item for you. So, we've had a lot of guests on the show here starting off the new year, and every time we've been talking about what the year holds in the future. So, since you already mentioned your bucket list for 2018 and crossing things off, like what are you hoping to accomplish with the new year?
Ooh, well, I think one of the things would be to hire some more people. It's kind of just like a me and one assistant type of thing going on right now. I would love to bring her on full time. Her name is Natalie. She's amazing. She's done work with me since I started the whole PR thing. She's always been by my side to just help with tasks where I was drowning, and being able to have her be the other like set of eyes, like have her proofread things, have her help me research, all things like that. If I could find another Natalie, if I could just clone Natalie like 5 times, that'd be great. Yeah, but we've had a couple of interns here and there, and I would love to continue that. I'm definitely looking for people to bring onto my team. I love providing people any sort of opportunity, whether it's like internships or any just like one-off help that they want to do to add to their resume. I know how important that is, and if I could have had that in college, I would have, completely, I would have lost my mind with happiness. But so if I could do that, I pride myself on being a women-only business, not to exclude men, but to empower women, really. Not that I'm against having men. If I worked with men, a lot of men work. Obviously, my co-partner for New Sound is a dude. So this is not a smear campaign by any means, but just empowering women in a way of, especially in the music industry, women can experience a lot of sexism and being looked down upon and things like that. And unfortunately, I've experienced it too much myself. So if I could be like a shining light, that'd probably be one of my goals, which is kind of to hire women, empower women, continue to do that, continue to get all around placements, I think. So I started the year off by having I just got one today as well, like great Spotify placements for my artists. And while that's not a traditional path for PR, that is part of New Echo Media PR is Spotify. Just because that's this day and age, like things are changing, and I think that it's not enough now for a publicist to say, okay, well, I'll get you some media interviews, some radio spins. Like that's not enough. And adding Spotify, really, artists make 0.00, I think it's like 0.00279 cents per stream on Spotify. So this is not a monetary thing, but Spotify is such an important asset to harness branding, I think. Like if you get a big Spotify placement, it's not end all be all. It's not going to skyrocket your career, but it could if you do it the right way. So just continuing to move in a direction where New Echo Media is set apart from other public relations agencies that might just keep focusing on simple interviews, one-off repeat Q&As, things like that. Like I want to do features that matter. I want to do things that are interesting, that that I will read and be interested in, and just really invest my time in making sure, I'd rather have 5 meaningful placements than 15 meaningless placements. And I think that's really important for client development as well. Let's see, what other goals do I have? Those are my big focuses this year. And just growing, like I would love to have another couple of publicists to have their own rosters under New Echo Media PR to create kind of an umbrella and have people bring in more clientele from other places that I might not have seen yet or encountered yet. Just really continue to get a bunch of experiences like that. I would really also love to be known in the Charlotte area as well. Not that I'm not now, but I would love to be just like a thought leader in general, not just with music, but in public relations. When people think of public relations professionals in Charlotte, I would love to be part of that. I would love to be a voice for young professional women, especially in the music industry in Charlotte, kind of being like a guiding light and that person that I didn't have and would love to have. So that's probably one of the things also that I would focus on. So yeah, just focusing on the Charlotte, exposure scene for myself and my own brands, and how I can help the Charlotte community, how I can help women in general, and just continuing to get interesting features to set my clients apart.
With that in mind, what are the Charlotte artists we should be watching right now?
Ooh, all right. So one of my favorites right now is reggae band Of Good Nature. I saw them on New Year's. They are a Charlotte band, and they are kicking off, really. They do, the cruises with Pat Monahan of Train. They have a lot of, I think these dudes are literally constantly touring. It's very rare that I, am on their page and I see they're not doing something. So they're amazing. They're also just, a group of really good, fun-loving dudes. I had the pleasure of hanging out with these dudes multiple times and just being good friends with them, and they're some great people. They're about to go on another tour with the Elevators, Full Alien Winter Tour, starts February, so that's cool. So, like I said, literally always touring. Those guys are amazing. I recently wrapped up a campaign last year with an artist called Sparkman. He's like a acoustic bass alt rock artist, and I say acoustic bass because he started acoustic and then kind of branched into the full band area. So that's pretty cool to see him kind of blossom in that way with his new album with a full band versus everything else. So that's pretty cool. One of my favorite North Carolina bands is Rainbow Kitten Surprise. I honestly just recently discovered them somehow. I had heard of them before, but I never got around to listening to them until actually a couple weeks ago, but they're incredible. They're pretty big as well. So definitely them. Lowborn out of Greensboro, North Carolina, they are definitely, I would say, one to watch. Like I said, they're emo pop rock. They are breaking this new genre of kind of synth rock with an emo twist. I don't know what it is, but Wes of Lowboard, he does producing and he does mixing and all these type of things, and they are just an incredible group of 4 dudes who are just so talented, all of them. They all bring something to the table that's really interesting, really new. They're all movers and shakers and hustlers in the music industry and just in general. So they have everything I think that it takes to become that large band. And that's actually who I'm podcasting with tonight. So I'm super excited, like I said, to podcast with them. And yeah, so those are probably my picks. Within the Wild is also another amazing Charlotte band. I saw them before Of Good Nature on New Year's as well. They are doing a great job. So yeah, those are probably some of my top ones there.
Well, I would love to continue this conversation, but for the sake of time, we got to kind of start wrapping it up. But I do want to give you a chance to kind of plug all of your things, like where people can find you and your clients and keep up with everything that's going on in your world. And then I'm going to ask you kind of one more PR related question and we'll wrap things up. But go ahead and get all your plugs in.
All right, sounds good. Okay, 1, 2, 3 plugs. So you can find me at newechomedia.com. That is my publicity website. As soon as you are on there, you will see my roster of all my clients. Anything that you would like to see, as far as placements go and anything like that, you can find under news. Anything like Spotify playlists, feature interviews, stuff like that. We've got going on there. So all social media is New Echo Media PR or New Echo Media, one of the two. So you'll be able to find us. And the website that I run is newsoundnonline.com. We cover everything, so it's national music news, but we have a Charlotte focus. We also do print as well. To do that, my podcast is called Drunk and Local. You can find us on Facebook there as well. So I'm kind of all over the place. But basically, if you want to find anything else about us, you found online and Echo Media is the place to go.
That's great. Okay, last question. You do music blogging, you do PR dealing with music blogs. Considering that this is something that's been on my mind a lot for the Holics blog, so I'm really just going to talk out the story idea with you right now. Do you feel like blogs doing news really matters that much in 2019? And I mean that both from your perspective as the publicist, but also from the view of the writer, because I feel like with more and more artists having, social media feed, obviously everyone has social media, but as that's becoming more and more the place where people kind of stay up to date with their favorite artist, how much value is there in like most news posts? Like today, I saw the band Pup put out a new song, and it's really good, and people should go check it out. But is that something that every website needs to just post about, or is it something that most people will probably learn about it from the band and from the label, and most blogs would be wiser to spend their time on some kind of original content that uses that news item?
Right. I mean, personally, there is absolutely no value in a daily news post because of the fact, I mean, and I say that with my website having a lot of daily news posts, like just kind of simple news. And I say that because, like you said, it's very saturated, but also it takes away from the importance of a site that you would visit to know that you're going to get a quality feature with an opinion that was well thought out, that was well written about, that took time. There's a huge difference between a normal news website and something like Pitchfork or maybe Rolling Stone or Oxcord, hint, hint, and quick nudge, nudge, where you go to the website and it's not just a bunch of copy and pasted press releases. It's something that matters. It's an opinion piece. It's a feature on an artist with either some sort of like meaningful interview or a theme and a focus. I think that's the biggest thing is like, if you're going to take your time to create a post on a site, you need to make sure that it's original in a way that it's going to not just bring readers, but the fact that like it's going to restore that kind of faith in music. I think a little bit. I think a lot of people, like you said, people can just get it from social media. So why would they come to your website? And to not waste the artist's time, I think is really important. Like as you're writing, maybe think like, does the artist appreciate this? Is this something that the publicist will be like, wow, this is a great feature? Like there is really no better feeling. I think one of the last like big features I wrote, I was complimented on by their publicist, and that's like the best feeling, because you know that the person that's promoting them is obviously looking for features that does the best for their artist in an interesting way. And I think sites that they continue to do that, and maybe a post like every couple of days, but like rather a daily post, more of like a feature or a long, just like a long piece with a theme. I think that's the most important thing is a website having their posts be very, very focused. That's one of my own downfalls. I kind of freak out when I don't have a lot going on the website because I feel like there always needs to be like some sort of update, like like that red tape on the bottom or something like, scrolling. And that's just the constant 24/7 news journalist part of my soul. But I need to understand that as a publicist, it gives me the perspective of your shit needs to be interesting or no one's going to care. And that's the bottom line, whether it comes to journalism, publicity, anything like that, and it goes the same for pitching. It's not enough to just, hey, can you cover my artist? You've got to really sell it. And I think you need to do that in posts on blogs as well.
I think that's a good answer. And it's a good place for us to wrap it up. I like to try to fit the plugs in before we get to the last question. That way people actually listen and they don't just tune out. And now you've helped me create my content for the day, so that's always useful. Again, you have all these things people can find you on. You have your publicity, you have social media people can find you, and then you have your podcast, Drunk and Local. I do appear on an episode, but it's not like normal episode, I guess would be the best way to say it. It's like an outtakes episode of an episode that never happened.
It's fabulous.
And we'll have to have you back because there's obviously a lot of things we still have to cover. And we're working on some things here involving the podcast in Michigan that hopefully we can maybe get you involved in. We're putting on a music conference. Maybe we can get you up here for that. Or we'll see you somewhere else on the road this year. I know that you do conference appearances whenever you can make them happen. So I wish you all the best in all of this. And do you have any final thoughts for listeners?
That's pretty much it. 2019. Let's get this loaf.